Coming up in this episode of Southern Newsweek, an exhibition of Ford vehicles opens at Invercargill's Transport World. 3,000 students dress up Roman style for a party, and a Queenstown-based boxer is off to the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. Hi, I'm Melissa Barton and welcome to Southern Newsweek. A rare collection of historical racing cars is on display in Invercargill this month. The exhibition of Ford vehicles opened at Transport World last week.
Car owners from all over the South Island have loaned their prized possessions for a unique and rare display. The Celebrating Ford Motorsport exhibition has brought together 20 Ford racing cars, each with its own story in the history of New Zealand motorsports. And it's been a big draw card for petrolheads everywhere.
People are really excited to know that we've got all the Ford Motorsport vehicles here in Invercargill. There's lots of sort of individual highlights, but I think overall it's just the fact that the whole collection is here and people can come along and browse through, and there's something for everyone.
But for workshop manager Graham Williams, the highlight of the display is the PDL Mustang II, which he says is technically perfect.
This is one of the most famous racing cars in this country. Debuted at the end of 1973 at the forefront of technology for those times and is still up there.
He praised the owners for loaning their cars to the exhibition, saying in his 40 years as a mechanic he'd never seen such a unique collection.
Letting us have this in the museum with these other famous cars is something that may never be repeated again. With such class company like it's with here today, with the Paul Radisich Mondeo Championship car.
This Celebrating Ford Motorsport exhibition runs for another month. Sharon Rees, The South Today.
Last week saw the University of Otago hold their annual Toga Party as part of orientation. This year's event attracted about 3,000 fresh-faced youngsters dressed up for the occasion.
The chilly 11 degrees evening air last night was no deterrent to the 3,000 students venturing out to the stadium in a toga, a form of dress said to have been favoured by Romulus, the founder of Rome. However, once inside the Forsyth Bar Stadium, the atmosphere was less like a dignified Roman Senate and more suggestive of a bacchanal. Things didn't get too out of hand as a team of security guards made sure students abided to the temporary alcohol ban around the stadium and in nearby Logan Park. The youngsters danced to the music of Dunedin band The Hot Donners, and later on the sounds played by a duo of disc jockeys who went by the name of Sweet Mix Kids. The crowd used their cell phones to share the epic moment with friends and family in the world outside. As the event wound down, police reported that no arrests had been necessary, but they would remain on site as a preventative measure. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
This week was the start of Otago University's academic year, and Dunedin's Castle Street has been full of rubbish and broken glass from the previous night's parties. The South Today went and had a look.
They may have grown up and left home, but someone is still having to pick up after them. Every morning over the last week, Dunedin's Castle Street, plus other roads in the student precinct, have been littered with discarded rubbish and broken glass, presumably by students of the University of Otago. It's 10:30 a.m. and last night's destructive revellers are still fast asleep, leaving the area almost deserted, but the evidence of wild parties remains scattered along the footpath. Timothy Tang, an exchange student from Hong Kong, is not impressed.
I'm from Hong Kong actually. I'm an exchange student. Hong Kong is much more cleaner, and yeah, we can't see rubbish bin or drop over. Yeah, it feels bad.
Tang feels that nothing can be done about the state of the street.
There's full of parties in the Castle Street, and I can do nothing about it because there's party over everywhere in every night. So I hate rubbish and parties, but yeah, it feels bad though. Yeah.
Another young person who did not want to be identified thought the situation was fairly normal.
So this is Castle Street, and this kind of thing's been going on for a long time here, and so I reckon it's probably alright if it's not causing any harm out of like just the people that live here. I don't know, like it's just it's just the way things have been for a long time, I guess.
However, something is being done. Dunedin ratepayers are funding through the City Council a high frequency of street cleaning by contractors, plus special cleaning of roads and footpaths when the City Council is alerted to issues such as broken glass. And in conjunction with the university plus the Students' Association, the City Council have had a presence at Orientation's Tent City and mailed out an educational package to many student flats. Anecdotally, there may be less rubbish than used to appear on the street in previous years, but the amount is hard to quantify. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
A Queenstown-based boxer's dream is coming true. Four-time New Zealand light welterweight champion Richie Hadlow has been selected to represent New Zealand at the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games in April. Mina Amso reports.
Queenstowner and light welterweight boxer Richie Hadlow rolls with the punches, getting fit and strong ahead of his biggest boxing event of his life.
It's a dream come true for me because I've been training since I was 7 years old at a different discipline, but Commonwealth Games and Olympics were always the pinnacle events. So this is one of them, and I'm proud to be going over representing New Zealand in Australia.
The 30-year-old came late to boxing, but has risen to be New Zealand's top-ranking male boxer. He's now ranked at number 4 at the Commonwealth and number 27 in the world.
The light welterweight is considered a highly scientific boxer with an aggressive front foot style. He says that style might take him to a pro level someday, but his focus now is on one thing.
I'm going for the medals, and I'm going to be myself. I'm going to believe in me, and I'm happy to have the country behind me.
He's also taking the mental preparation side of things seriously.
Just focusing on being wherever you are at the time, which sounds super airy-fairy, but it's really important in boxing. If you get dropped or someone starts getting the better of you, you've got to realise that you're there and you've got to be in the moment and believe in what you've got.
Boxing New Zealand high performance manager Harry Ottey said in a statement he is confident the squad selected can bring home the medals. All of the athletes have performed well in qualifying events and have excelled at the high performance camps held in Auckland and Colorado Springs. And on Joseph Parker's fight against Anthony Joshua on March 31st.
They both have an extensive amateur career. I think AJ's been tested at a higher level.
Hadlow will join boxers from 6 other countries in Canberra next month for a 10-day pre-games training camp. Mina Amso, The South Today.
The effect of television on young minds has been debated by academics for more than 40 years. A University of Otago psychology lecturer has debunked research which said the cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants was harmful to children.
Once upon a time, Sesame Street was considered detrimental to children's development.
I think that it's consistent across time. I think that a generation looks at the current generation and sees things that are different and tries to, I guess, explain some of the issues that maybe the newer generation is experiencing. And so SpongeBob was the one that was tested, most recently, but in the 70s it was Sesame Street, and people were arguing that Sesame Street was too fast-paced and that Sesame Street was going to have a negative impact on learning and memory.
And in 2011, a couple of American academics tried to prove the cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants was affecting young people's ability to focus. Otago University's Dr. Damien Scarf has reviewed the 2011 study and found it to be, fishy.
So the study was published in 2011, and it basically argued that the pace of SpongeBob, so the number of scene changes and cuts, had a negative impact on children's executive function, so things like working memory and attention. And so we basically reviewed the evidence that's looked at this issue and found that overall there's actually no consistent evidence that pace or SpongeBob has a negative impact on children's attention and learning.
The effect of too much or senseless television on young minds has been hotly debated by academics for more than 40 years. And Scarf believes it'll still get people hot under the collar for many years to come.
Because you think about how much media children are exposed to. So media is now more common than ever. So it used to be TV, but now there's screens everywhere. And so it's important to figure out what impact that might have or might not have. So you test it, and if you find it has no effect, then again, that's knowledge that we can use to think about guidelines about how much media children should watch and things like that.
Damien Scarf's research has just been published in the journal called Paediatrics. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, Dunedin City Council-owned company Aurora Energy ignore official information requests, and most people in the Wakatipu region are not fully prepared for a natural disaster. Welcome back. The Dunedin City Council-owned company Aurora Energy announced last week that it could choose to ignore official information requests. The South Today found out more.
There has been a high degree of public interest in the Dunedin company Aurora Energy regarding concerns about its power pole replacement program as well as other network issues. At a meeting on Tuesday, the Dunedin City Council was informed by Dunedin City Holdings Chairman Graham Crombie that Aurora Energy did not have to answer any questions that might be put to them.
The Official Information Act, I think, does not apply to electricity companies. It does apply to local government CTTOs. It's our intent to continue down those processes.
Councillor Lee Vandervis then sought confirmation that the City Council could be left out of the loop by one of its own companies.
So it doesn't matter whether it's Aurora or Delta or any of the other companies, if they do something that we want to question regarding their SOI, those questions need to go through you,
CHL,
and then you basically deal with them at arm's length from us.
Several Dunedin City councillors have since expressed surprise and disappointment at the company's stance. Councillor Aaron Hawkins told us today that the timing was not ideal.
I think there's certainly a very high level of public interest in the way that Aurora are dealing with the challenges that they're facing at the moment, and I think timing-wise it would seem problematic to take this opportunity to become less open with the public than the chair of their board has been recently.
Hawkins said the council could force the company to adopt a more responsive attitude.
I hope in this case it doesn't come to that. I'm hopeful that seeing the sentiment at council and around the community that Aurora will continue to comply with that level of transparency that we've seen from them in the past and do so willingly.
When approached, Aurora Energy said they had nothing else to add. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
8 out of 10 people in the Wakatipu region are not fully prepared for a natural disaster. That's according to a recent survey conducted by the Ministry of Civil Defence and Emergency Management. Mina Amso reports.
We've done. Yeah.
Civil Defence Officer for the Otago region, Trevor Andrews, is worried. The "get ready to get through" message is still not getting through to people.
I'm very concerned about, I'll say, the woeful level of preparedness that communities have.
Andrews sees the latest Ministry of Civil Defence and Emergency Management polling figures show only 18% of New Zealanders are fully prepared for an emergency. That means only 2 out of 10 people have a survival plan, which includes what to do when not at home, have stored at least 3 litres of water per person for 3 days, and have regularly updated emergency survival items and have the necessary emergency items. This includes 3 litres of water per person per day, food that will not rot, medicines, a torch, a battery-operated radio, and of course plastic bags for wastes.
We have this spectacle currently in Nelson and Takaka currently, where people were so unprepared for those events, despite being adequate warning, a lot of warning, that resulted in panic buying from the local store.
He is also concerned Wakatipo businesses are being too complacent, putting employees, clients, guests at risk if a natural disaster occurs.
I won't be in a position to come around and vacuum up all your clients that you might decide to dump on the street.
Civil defence authorities are in the process of distributing booklets in central Otago. It contains information such as risks and hazards and where to find the nearest civil defence centre. Mina Amso this afternoon.
The National Party's 56-member caucus elected a replacement leader for Bill English, who left Parliament and political life on Thursday. Simon Bridges and Paula Bennett were chosen as leader and deputy leader respectively. This afternoon found out what Southerners on the street thought of the new guard.
He's reasonably young, isn't he? But I'm not too sure in terms of his experience, but yeah, I'm up in the air about that one. I'm not sure.
Don't know much about him.
Not worried because I don't vote for them, so no, sorry.
I just don't want to hear about any leader of the National Party, and I'm so annoyed that they're bombarding Jacinda's space with all of their not very likeable candidates.
I think it will be interesting. I'm yet to decide whether I think it's a good idea or not, but definitely the next few weeks will be a good chance to see what will happen.
He's the new national leader. I think that's good, and I hope he does well.
I don't know. I think he sounds as bad as the rest of them.
He wouldn't have been my pick. No, he'd be about my number 3.
He's pompous, smug, arrogant, doesn't belong where he is and doesn't deserve the job.
He's good looking, but I would rather have someone who cares about people, particularly the South, and housing people. Being in the National Party, they want to build a casino before housing for people. I don't think that's right.
Coming up after the break on Southern Newsweek, recently completed Dunedin street art is defaced by rival artists, and the Goldfields cavalcade is held up at gunpoint. Thanks for staying with us. A piece of recently completed street art was defaced over the weekend, drawing ire from the artist. The work on the corner of Albany and Great King Street paid tribute to one of the city's most famous bands of the 1980s, but it seems old school Dunedin isn't quite to everyone's taste.
On one side, the artwork paying tribute to Dunedin band The Chills remains intact. However, on the other side, the marks where the band's name has been crossed out are evident. It's the work of second-year art student Emma Craig who chose the legendary Dunedin band as she grew up listening to her parents' Chills records.
They're my favourite band, and I thought they needed more recognition, really, in Dunedin. Well, you know, everywhere. But, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people my age don't know about old bands like that, and they need to, I think.
However, 2 days after she painted the footpath-facing side, this happened. And we've muted the sound as the people talking to camera had a very limited and profane vocabulary. When she found out about her artwork being vandalised, Craig was angry with the attack and took to social media. She says this video was sent to her.
Well, as you see, Coyote is painted on there, and they're a Dunedin band as well, very small band, and I found that through Facebook, and I got in touch with them about it to see if they knew anything, and they sent me the video.
The band themselves sent you the video of them doing it?
Yes, and pretended that it was someone else.
Emma Craig took the footage to Dunedin Police and played them the clip the band had sent her.
Yeah, it really annoyed me, because it had been hard work and it meant a lot to me because they're my favourite band. It's not just a random piece of artwork that I made up. So I spend a lot of time on the design and everything and taken a lot of time to get it perfect, and then someone had to come and do this.
The Chills are currently recording out of town, but when contacted by the South Today, Martin Phillips said he was sad that someone has done this. Emma Craig liaised with Martin Phillips along the design process and says he was pleased with the design.
He was really excited about it. He seemed like he was. And he said, "Do us proud," and yeah, I don't know, he seemed pretty happy about it.
Emma Craig says she'll spend the next few weeks trying to fix the piece and finish the rest of the artwork. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Members of the band Coyote were approached for comment by The South Today but refused to comment. A former New Zealand soldier is on a mission to raise awareness about mental health issues. Blair Benefield of Mount Maunganui is travelling from Stewart Island to Cape Reinga to raise funds for mental health services, and he's doing it all on his skateboard. Sharon Rees has more.
Blair Benefield has come a long way to get where he is today, and as he starts his journey to raise mental health awareness, he's only got the length of the country to go. Benefield will spend the next few months skateboarding from the bottom of the South Island to the top of the North, and plans to spread his message along the way.
Starting to skateboard the whole length of New Zealand, over 3,000 kilometres, finishing on top in Cape Reinga. Yeah, and along the way want to connect with local communities, talk with schools and any sort of, meet up at skate parks or something, and just talk with the kids and try and inspire them to use their creative outlet as a form of therapy.
Benefield was a serving soldier in Afghanistan in 2008 and said he had a hard time settling back into normal life on his return. But the real blow came when he lost a member of his section in a training accident in 2012.
As a commander, took it on board quite heavily. I felt that I had failed my friend and sunk quite deep into depression and was eventually diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Having been diagnosed, he was no longer fit for service and said he lost everything when he left the army. But in his darkest moments, Benefield found a new purpose.
I knew that was the darkest, deepest place that I could go, and had a moment of clarity almost, and thought I need to find a purpose again. And so I found my purpose within my passion being skateboarding and adventure, surfing, snowboarding, all those sort of board sports. And so that gave me a purpose again.
Relying on the kindness of strangers, such as the Stewart Island experience who shouted his trip across Fovo Strait today, Benefield hopes to raise $150,000 for mental health services on his Give a Little page. He arrives back in Invercargill tonight and will then begin his journey north. Anyone in need of a conversation about mental health should ring Lifeline on 0800 543 354 or free call or text 1737 for support from a trained counsellor. Sharon Rees, The South Today.
A Dunedin electric bike retailer has teamed up with a welding workshop in Dunedin to get North East Valley onto electric bikes. The scheme enables riders to borrow an electric bike rather than buy one. Rosella Bone reports.
There's a new way to travel in town, and the North East Valley is plugging into it. These electric bikes, electric tandem bikes and electric scooters are expected to soon be a regular sight on North East Valley roads, ridden by people who have borrowed them rather than bought them. The Borrow Bike scheme allows North East Valley residents to borrow an electric bike for errands around town and is currently available free to members of the Valley Community Workspace and Valley card holders. Bikes like these are well capable of carrying man, woman or dog anywhere in Dunedin. And the trailer attached to this one is good for carrying 40 kgs of shopping.
One was a very small dog and the one was a slightly larger dog and a granddaughter, so 3 creatures in the back here, and we're intending that this could be borrowed by people as well. So at the moment there's been a person up the valley who's been using the trailer for errands into town behind her electric bike.
The motor powering the bike is fitted behind the rear wheel and offers level assist of up to 9. What is it showing here?
I'm on 9 gear. But it's on level assist 9, which means that Mark should be able to fly along North Road with a trailer behind him at about 32-35 kilometres an hour.
The bikes have been tested from Warrington to Seacliff and are now being tested on the steep streets of North East Valley.
been filmed going up Baldwin Street. So yeah, we can get a bike up every street in the country.
The man behind building the unusual bikes, scooters and tandem scooters is Stephen Ward at Valley Anvil, who shares his workshop with Dunedin Electric Bikes.
Everything from people with disabilities, with special bike needs, recumbents, hand cranks, which are kind of like lie-down bikes with people who can't use their legs, so they use hand crank systems instead.
North East Valley residents are being invited to turn up at the Valley Community Workspace to give one a go. Roselle LeBone, The South Today.
An armed robbery occurred in the Catlins area of Tahakopa. The masked robbers were later identified as juveniles from the local school. By chance, The South Today was on the scene.
This year's cavalcade got the surprise of their life when they were held up by 8 masked bandits, comprising of the entire roll of pupils from Tahakopa School.
Give us your money or you can't pass!
Brandishing toy weapons and dressed for the occasion, the little robbers stopped the horse-powered wagons, making off with a haul of cash, which may go towards a trip to Wellington later this year. The Cobb & Co heavy wagon trail is part of the Otago Goldfields Cavalcade, which is set to finish up on Saturday with about 500 participants converging onto Catlins Township of Owaka. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
That's all from us this week. You can go online and check us out on Facebook, or you can keep up with Southern News via our website, YouTube and channel39.co.nz. I'm Melissa Barton and thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.